Welcome to Living Well with Alan Davey, and I'm Rob Holding. And Alan, I'm trying to remember this term you just said to me, neuroplasticity.
Well done. Yeah, neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is a pretty technical term, but the simplest the way to understand it is plastic, as in moldable, pliable.
Neuro for brain,
Yeah,
and
moldable brain.
It's moldable.
Yeah. Our brains are moldable. If they weren't, then whatever belief we formed in our childhood, whatever conclusions we come to, would be stuck in those conclusions for the rest of our life.
But we are, aren't we, mostly? I mean, unless somebody points out that the way I'm thinking and the way I'm behaving is wrong,
Yeah.
I'm stuck in that.
Yeah.
It's not plastic at all. It's
It has the ability. Yeah, that's right. Set in concrete is the other term, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that's all set in concrete, or your mind's set in concrete. The reality is, time doesn't heal. So we need more than time to allow healing to take place. Yeah. And the more than is the understanding of truth, being able to apply truth into whatever's going on in our life. So our mind that has set itself into a groove of its thinking is then able to be challenged that thinking's inaccurate, and then form a new groove by applying the truth. So this is simple but not easy, and we may have talked about that over the times we've been together.
I remember when Sharon and I, we went and saw a wonderful lady, Rosemary Diprose, for marriage counselling. And because we got married when we were 35, so set in stone.
Yep.
And most of the time, the pictures you get are, you know, when you're young, you're like a sponge and you come together and it molds nicely. And when you're older, you're like two stones that, you know. Right. And you go, what's the end of that picture? That's just dust. That's not a nice picture. No. And what Rosemary said was, she said, no, when you're young, you're like a little creek that grows into a stream, and when you're older, you're like a big mighty river. And when two rivers come together, there's an awful lot of what do you call it, confluence, whatever it is, turbulence and everything.
Yeah.
But then it's a stronger river afterwards. And I go, that's a good picture. That one I can look at. Dust and pebbles, I don't like. No. And a lot of times when you're wanting to introduce the subject of, Alan, you're thinking the wrong way about yourself, immediately I'm going, this is going to hurt, right? I'm set in concrete, and you're going to want to break down my concrete to change it with something.
Right.
And that's a barrier for even starting the conversation.
Yeah. One of the things, sometimes if I'm running a seminar, I'll have a piece of plasticine. And when you first grab hold of it, it is cold and it's quite firm. But as you begin to add some pressure to it and add some warmth to it, it becomes more pliable. And one of the things that I do when I've got a client in my office, as preparation to the session, I'll say to them that my role is I'm going to ask you lots of questions, and part of that is I'm lifting up a rock to see if something crawls out. And, tell me about your life, where does that anger come from, all sorts of different questions. And if nothing crawls out, we gently put the rock down. But if something crawls out, then we go have a look at that. Because that something is an issue that's gonna come up somewhere, probably already has, almost undoubtedly. And so I'm preparing a person to be open enough to consider there's something down inside themselves that's causing their behaviour. And like I say, probably in every session that we talk, Rob, is our beliefs produce our behaviour.
Yes.
Our behaviour comes from our beliefs.
I mean, the Bible says that as a man thinks, so is he. It's the way
exactly.
And a lot of people will be thinking, well, Alan, you've obviously got everything right, because you're a counsellor and a former pastor, so you don't have anything underneath your rocks. But it's more like, no, I've come to recognise that we all have things under our rocks, and I've got skills to deal with it.
We're all damaged to some degree.
Would that be more correct?
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah. No, the fall has damaged us all, so we are all damaged goods. Yeah. And plus I'm married, so I get that pointed out reasonably regularly, and rightly so, you know. Where does that behaviour come from, Alan?
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
So no, we're all a work in progress, but the goal really is to progress.
Yes.
The goal isn't to say, oh, well, this is who I am. I hear that.
So often you get the personality traits, You know, I mean, I can't remember what is sanguine and what the other ones are. So I go the lion, the beaver, the otter, and the golden Labrador.
Right.
You know, and you go, well, that's me. I'm a lion. And God goes, actually, no, that's your main thing at the moment, but I'd really like to flatline those other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same as ministry gifts. Yes, you might have the, as a Christian, you might be the prophet or the whatever, but God says, actually, I'd like to bring those other ones up and make them a bit more of a flat line. So you go, oh, this is me. I'm stuck in that.
We act out of our beliefs, don't we? And so you can be a prophet, but if you're insecure or things like that, the way you project the prophet will come from a place that really, if that place was healed, if that place was worked on, then the aspect of the prophet or the evangelist or whatever comes out clearer. So that's always the goal, Rob, is to be able to say, okay, we reap what we sow. How are we going here?
Yeah. The evangelist who comes and sits down beside you on a park bench and has a quiet chat with you versus the evangelist who stands in the middle of the street. They're both evangelists, but there's different personalities going on in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And those personalities may not be wrong, but we need to be able to check where that power source is coming from.
Yeah.
Because if the power source is coming from a wound within me that says, well, I've got to get this point across, because if I don't get this point across, then I'm a less than who I should be, then it's going to get tainted coming out.
So go back to the plasticine, and we know that the blue tack's very similar at times, but sometimes it's harder to get that plasticine malleable.
Yeah.
Is that an age thing with us, or is it you go, okay, well, you're 60 years old now, so it's going to be really hard to get your mind.
Well, that's true. To be honest, that is true. The longer you leave it, the harder it is. But hard just means hard. It doesn't mean too hard.
Yeah.
So when we can come to realise that, okay, I've left it a little while, but that doesn't mean I still can't make some significant changes that improve my life and improve the life of those around me. Sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny.
Who said that?
I don't know.
That was good though. I remember that.
It comes from way
ago.
back, doesn't it? And it's reasonably well known. But the truth in it is, our thoughts produce our destiny.
Yeah.
So if that's accurate, then I really do need to assess the basis for my thinking.
Yeah.
And and we need to be willing to assess the basis for our thinking. Otherwise, God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble.
Yeah. So go through the steps. Sow a thought.
Sow a thought, reap an action.
An action.
Sow an action.
Reap a habit.
Reap a habit.
Sow a habit.
Reap a character.
Reap a character.
Sow a character, reap a destiny.
Yeah.
And one of the classics for me in regards to this, and it's a reasonably simplistic one, relates back to my dad. If my dad was alive today, he'd be 108. So he was an old man when I came along. I think I might have mentioned that at some point. And so back in the day, in Dad's environment, smoking was popular.
Yep.
And
it was encouraged by doctors for your lungs.
Exactly.
And the smoking carriages in the car in the train were the health carriages.
So I didn't realise that. But yeah, I know that Dad certainly believed there's nothing wrong with smoking.
Yep.
So he saw people around him smoking. So sow a thought, reap an action. He started smoking at the age of 12.
Right.
So an action, reap a habit. Dad became a smoker.
Yep.
It's just what he now did. And so a habit, reap a character. My memory of Dad is, if I shut my eyes and think of Dad, he was a short old man with a roll-me-own smoke hanging out of his mouth. Yep. And he's forever trying to light it.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So a habit, reap a character. So a character, reap a destiny. Dad died at 72. Do you know why? Lung cancer.
Yeah.
So that was his destiny.
It's, I mean, at the moment as we're recording this, the Olympic Games are on. And I said to somebody over the weekend, I was speaking in Kawerau, and I said, I actually seriously thought about retraining for the Olympics, because I did athletics when I was younger, and particularly shot put discus. And I thought, at the time I was thinking the Sydney Olympics in 2000, I was coming up to 40. I thought, yeah, I'm still big enough. I could get there. Nah, can't be bothered.
Well,
right. So, but the thought was there, but it didn't translate into the action.
There's still the Melbourne Olympics in 2032, Rob.
Yeah, it's, at the age of 72, I really probably won't be making it for that.
Yeah,
but,
past your peak.
But well done, Valerie Adams, of course. But Dame Valerie Adams. But well, there's the thing too, because we've got that young New Zealand shot putter coming along. We've got Valerie Adams, who's now, for her PB is not personal best; it's post babies.
Yes, true.
So she's come back after having two children, come back into the field, and you can, I think you can see that she's not as hungry as she used to be. There is a point where you kind of settle for what you've got.
Right.
And you go, okay, we got our 3 score in 10 years, and yeah, maybe I'm a little bit messed up in here. But I think we're talking about living well, and God created us to live well. He didn't create us to live in this prison, and be imprisoned by the mind. And no matter what age we are, we should still be thinking, maybe I need to change. Maybe I need to break out of this.
Well, living well is the key, isn't it? Because we've only got this is the opportunity we have on this planet, one life.
Yep.
That's it. We can make mistakes and learn, try, fail, learn, grow, and that's the goal. So how are we going with that? And then the other side of that is we reap what we sow. And so what are we growing with what we're sowing? And one indicator of that is what's happening in my life.
Yep.
And so if things aren't going that well, relationship-wise or in other areas, if things aren't going that well, we have a tendency to say, well, that's because this or that happened. Well, to be blunt, this or that will happen to everybody. It's not what happens to us, but our response to it. It's our response to it. It's not what happens to us, but what we think about what has happened to us. So a thought, reap an action. It's what we think about what happens to us that will determine our next step. And so if our thinking patterns are stink thinking, then stink thinking will lead to stink feelings, which will lead to stink actions, which will lead to stink behaviour, which will lead to stink life.
Well, see, now you put another word in there. So we talk about thoughts, and then you put feelings and then action. Yeah. So which comes first, the thought or the feeling?
Yeah, good question. That's a very good question. I think the thoughts come first, but here's the thing, Rob, that neuroplasticity, the mind is moldable, that realization that what's in between our ears here is the power source that will profoundly influence our life.
Yep.
And in a fundamental, basic way, the mind has two things. It does two things. It does our thinking and it does our feeling. But the front part of our brain is called the frontal cortex.
Yep.
And the frontal cortex, primarily its job is time. It understands time. And so if I was to say to you, when was the last time you had a pizza? And we put probes on your brain, this is the bit that lights up. It literally lights up because it's now functioning.
Yep.
And so it understands time. If that bit got damaged through accident or surgery, then time is now distorted.
Okay.
And we used to care for a guy in our home for a number of years, and he had a major car accident when he was 21. He came to live with us when he was 50, and almost without fail, every day he would say, "Is Dad coming to pick me up today?" Because he had no concept of time.
Gone. Yep.
Dad had been dead for 30 years. And lots of other interesting things. He's a lovely, gentle man. I admired him for him being able to cope with that as well as he did.
Yeah. So the frontal cortex is
that's
time
the bit that understands time. There's another part of our brain. There's all sorts of parts. There's another part that understands language. And if you've had a stroke and that bit's affected your language, your ability to speak is affected.
Yep.
So these are what happens. There's another part in the base of our brain back here, and that's called the amygdala. And the amygdala, its function is to store and relay feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
And so when something happens to me, because this is getting back to what you were saying, does it, what comes first, our beliefs or our feelings? Well, they come almost simultaneously, that you cannot split them apart. And I'll use this as the example, one of the examples. When I was a little kid, I was downtown and I saw a black dog, and I reached out to pat the black dog. As I reached out to pat this black dog, I didn't know it didn't know me, and it took a hold of my hand, and it was chewing on my hand. It was bad. And so there was blood and slime and all that sort of stuff, and I had to pull my hand out of its mouth. While all that was going on, my adrenal gland would have pumped adrenaline out, the fight or flight.
Yep.
And so my heart was racing, my breathing was laboured, I was sweating and very afraid.
Yep.
And so pulled my hand out, got away from that dog. The very next time I saw that dog, the amygdala has connected that black dog to this feeling.
Yes.
You understand?
Yep. Yep.
This feeling. Now, here's a really important thing, and for anybody listening, this is really important to understand, so I really hope I can explain it in a way that it comes across well. Because the amygdala has no concept of time, it only understands feelings and emotions, so the moment I saw that dog again, the amygdala doesn't know time, so it didn't say, oh, that was 2 days ago. You're nowhere near it now. You understand that dog didn't know you, so there's no context there. All the amygdala does is feelings.
Yeah, feelings.
And up comes the feeling of being terrified. And if I hadn't processed that appropriately, I would most likely have a phobia. That's where phobias come from.
Yeah.
Phobias come from an experience that you've had that triggers a powerful feeling, and now anytime you think, feel, smell, hear, you go to a place or whatever, and it triggers that, the amygdala doesn't say, oh, yeah, that was 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 20 years ago, because this is the bit that understands that.
Time.
This bit only understands feelings. And so up comes the ugly feeling.
Yeah.
And now what's controlling us? The ugly feeling is controlling us. And so the two primary things that if we can deal with these two things in our life, we're going to notice some profound change. There are other things that are around the peripheral of that, but in a primary sense, we need to trace, face, and replace distinct beliefs we've formed, because our subconscious has a powerful influence on our life.
You talk about phobias. Mine is moths.
Right.
Right. And I'm like that immediately.
Yeah.
Right. So all I can think is at some point when I was a child, a moth must have gone down my shirt or something.
Yeah.
And like most adults nowadays, you know, you've swallowed a moth. I mean, I've rode motorbikes for you swallow moths and flies and bees and all sorts of things. But if there's a big moth, I'm like this immediately.
Yeah.
And I recognize it, and I'll go, nope, I'm going to sit here.
Yeah.
You know, it's
that's how powerful those feelings are.
Yeah, yeah.
They can overwhelm us that quick.
Yeah.
Because feelings are profoundly powerful. So those are the two things: trace the lie and downgrade. And I'll talk about this. We'll talk about this now. Actually, downgrade the unbearable feeling.
The feeling.
We downgrade those unbearable feelings from unbearable, because when it's unbearable, I can't cope.
Yeah. When
it's bearable, I can cope. And so there's a process that we need to go through to be able to do that.
How are you with black dogs now?
Yeah, no, fine. Because I don't know where it came from, probably my parents, but they might have even been there, not that I remember that, but they would have reassured me that was that dog, not all dogs.
Right.
And maybe I was in town when I saw it the second time and got afraid, and they would have reassured me again.
So my parents should have reassured me that it was that moth, not all moths.
That's correct, if they were there, and if you had been able to process it appropriately. When I was 5 years old, we had an Auntie Irene. Everybody should have an Auntie Irene, because she was warm, caring, and well off. And so when each of us kids turned 5, she would take us from Waipukurau, she would drive us to Napier to go to the farmer's department store.
All right.
To buy a toy. We were allowed a toy. And it's stunning. Thank you, Auntie Irene, for that. And so I remember it very well. My 5th birthday, she picked me up, took me to Napier, took me to the farmer's department store. We walked through the big double doors, and as we walked in, she said, there's the toy aisle. Go and find yourself a toy. When you found a toy, come back to these double doors and I'll come and meet you. I'm just going to go look at some other things.
Yep.
So Auntie Irene wanders off and I go into Aladdin's cave, the toy aisle, and it was amazing. And I don't know how long it took me, but eventually I found a toy. And I walked to where I thought where the double doors were. And as I got to those double doors, I looked around and everything was completely unfamiliar because unbeknown to me, the farmer's department store covered a whole block. And so you had a set of double doors here and a set of double
doors.
They looked the same, but when you got there, everything was different.
Yeah.
And so I started crying, and the shop assistant found me and took me to the information centre, and over the loudspeaker there's a little boy here, lost his auntie. Could his auntie please come and get him? So Auntie Irene comes straight away and picks me up, and we go home, and seemingly everything is fine after that.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, the lost in a department store feeling followed me.
Wow.
And so from that day on, I was afraid of getting lost because any time I thought I might get lost, the amygdala goes through its file.
Yep.
Lost equals when you're 5 in a department store freaking out.
Yep.
And so I remember one day I was up in Auckland and we were following a map. Back in the day, we didn't have Google, and we were following a map, and the map was outdated, and we got to the end of a road, and there wasn't meant to be an end of a road.
Right.
It was meant to carry on.
Yep.
But the map was so outdated that the road ended there, and I started to freak out because right at that moment I was 5 again.
Yeah. And that whole lost feeling came in again.
As a 5-year-old.
Maybe that's what happened when we were in Israel and my wife and kids were getting upset when I got us lost. Maybe they had department store lost.
Well, you'll see people have meltdowns and they'll behave like a child.
Yep.
They'll throw the toys out of the cot. They'll overreact. Often it comes from an unbearable feeling that's come screaming up because of another event.
Yeah.
And so the goal there then is to be able to recognise, oh, that's that. I get that now. You see, I never travelled overseas. True, I never travelled overseas until my mid-40s. Because if I get lost in New Zealand, I can walk home.
That's it. Yep.
If I get lost in Fiji, I can't swim that good.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened. My wife longed to go overseas. I'd always make excuses.
Wow.
The year I dealt with that was the year we went overseas for the first time.
Did you get lost?
Quite possibly, but because I'd orientated myself to being okay with it, not unbearable.
Yeah. So, but
just
what you were doing was you were in some ways overruling the feelings.
It's exactly what you have to do,
right? And you're saying I'm not going to let the feelings control my thoughts.
Yeah. 4 words that set me free. Feelings are not facts.
Feelings are not facts.
Feelings are not facts. Feelings are real, but they're not necessarily telling me the truth. Feelings are there to serve me, not master me.
Yeah.
Jesus didn't say the feelings will set you free. He said the truth will set you free.
The truth will set you free.
And here's
you've been bringing this along for you've just been waiting for an opportunity to play with your little truck.
Well, I've brought this along a couple of times now because I thought, well, if we move down into this, then I've got my little illustration, but we never have. So we have now. So here's the illustration. That's a truck.
Correct. That's a fact.
Yep,
that's a fact.
Truck units are designed to pull trailer units.
Yep.
Trailer units are not designed to try and pull a truck unit. It's a truck unit's job to
pull the trailer
unit. And when the trailer unit comes around here like a jackknife, we've got trouble.
Yep.
The truck and trailer are now in danger. So it's not meant to happen like that.
That's a fear most blokes have. Yeah. With trailers, right, when you're backing.
And when people are watching.
Yeah.
And so
this is facts.
This is facts or truth. This is feelings, moods, and emotions. It's that cluster of stuff. It's the amygdala stuff. So truth is meant to guide feelings. Feelings are not meant to take over truth.
That's so back the front to the way most of us operate, because it's always how I feel about things guides and drives what I do and what I think.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
but
right.
Isn't that normal though? I mean,
It's normal. That in the extreme sense, which was me, extreme not as in too extreme, but as in if we take it too far, it's called emotionally based reasoning. That means if I feel this, it must be accurate. If I feel you've abandoned me, if you looked at me wrong and ignored me, then I've been abandoned by you, because that's what it feels like.
yeah,
If I feel like a failure because I made a mistake, then I must be a failure. So the feelings then take over this. And what happens is when that's there and that's not there, that's not even close. That's rolled down the hill and it's sitting at the bottom of the hill down here.
Right.
And all we've got is this.
There's the feelings running free and running
Absolutely.
havoc.
And unfortunately in our culture today, it's kind of like, well, if it feels good, do it.
Yeah.
Obey your feelings. Heck, we shouldn't obey our feelings.
No.
We need to reassess the feelings. I'm not saying deny the feelings, but challenge their accuracy.
Yeah.
So the goal isn't we try and get rid of all of our feelings. No, what we need to do is we need to bring facts in, evidence in, truth in, and say, okay, what's going on here?
Is this overruling the feelings?
Yes, it is.
So I mean, it's, if we go back to the Olympics again, and we're sitting there watching the women's shot put on the weekend, and again, I can't remember her name. I'm sorry, our young New Zealand lady shot putter, the world champion who put it first fouled. The next one comes up, she fouls. So here's our young New Zealand lady on her first time. What's going through her mind? The emotions, the feelings. 3 for 3, so you've got to overcome that, and even if you failed twice for your third one, you've got to overcome that feeling. You go up, you're at the pool and you look up the 3-meter board and you go, well, that's not so high. And then you climb up the 3-meter board and you're shaking and, enough to fall off.
Yeah.
How do is it just a repetition thing to overcome those feelings? Because, I mean, I know that if I use the 3-meter board for me back in Dunedin at Moana Pool, the first time up there, it's a long way down to the pool, but whatever. Yeah. Jump off. Next time, jump off. Next time, dive off.
I'll explain that by telling you another story. And this guy won't
Stories are good.
This guy won't mind me telling you this story. He's a client of mine, came to me, I don't know, 6 weeks, 2 months ago, and in lifting a rock to see what crawled out, he recognised that embarrassment was his unbearable feeling. Now, embarrassment was attached to something that happened in his childhood. So the amygdala attaches that yucky event, and so anytime he thinks of embarrassment, up comes the yucky feeling.
The yucky event, yep.
And so he gets himself married. He has a number of children. He never, ever went to any of his children's school events, none of them, which really caused some problems. And so there was a disconnecting from him, his wife, and his children, because his unbearable feeling, his UBF of feeling embarrassed, he had projected that on to anybody that might get embarrassed feels the same feeling he does. Because that's what he's connected being embarrassed to, this yucky feeling related to the echo from his childhood. And so we talk it through, and I give him some tools, and I'll explain those in a moment, tools to be able to downgrade the unbearable feeling of feeling embarrassed.
So not remove it.
You can't take it away. You can, because it's part of your being, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we downgrade it.
It's the moth.
It's the memory.
Yeah,
that's right. And so what I do with clients often is we'll find their unbearable feeling, and let's say for him it was feeling embarrassed, and we'd write it on his hand, feeling embarrassed. And I said, now put that up in front of you like this. And it's now not your hand; it represents the feeling.
Yep.
What are you seeing now? Well, I'm seeing the feeling. Yeah. How powerful is that feeling? He said, I can't see anything but the feeling. And I say, okay, grab your other hand and push it out of the way. Can you see anything now? I can see things clearly. Okay, let it go back again. What's now in control? The feeling's in control. Push it out of the way. Can you see clearly? Yes. And I say, who's controlling the hand? I'm control. You know,
Yep.
we
Yep.
control.
I'm making a decision
Yeah.
to control the hand.
We control our feelings. And that's a powerful realization, the realization that feelings aren't facts, I can control them. They're meant to serve me, not master me.
Yeah.
They're real, but not necessarily accurate. And so we downgrade, and this is the key. You downgrade your unbearable feeling from unbearable, because when it's here, it's unbearable, you're going to run like heck from whatever it is. Yeah, a moth, I mean, you know, people looking on would say, well, that's a bit silly. But because your amygdala just has the feeling, you're not thinking it's silly, you're just getting scared. And so when you're able to downgrade it, this is simple but not easy.
So we can't get rid of the feeling.
No, we downgrade the unbearable feeling. So it's kind of, in that sense, it's in my peripheral
So I'm
vision.
making it bearable now.
Yeah, It's you either downgrade it from up, because when it's unbearable, you're only in reaction.
Yep.
This isn't there. This is there, because that's now taken over. When we downgrade it from unbearable to maybe even just a little uncomfortable, ideally bearable, but even a little uncomfortable is okay, then this starts taking over again.
Yeah.
And when that takes over, it reassesses this and it says, oh yeah, that's that echo from my past. That was then, this is now, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So we need to reassure ourselves. So getting back to the story of that guy, he gained enough understanding in a couple of sessions to go to his son's recital at school, music recital.
Excellent.
And he walks into this music recital. This is only a month ago.
He'd be feeling uncomfortable doing so.
He was scared. He walks into this music recital, and his goal was to get there the moment his son was going to be doing the music. That was his plan.
Right.
So he timed it to what he thought was perfection. He gets there, and the whole program is running 10 minutes late.
Oh, dear.
So he's sitting there, and he's watching all these other children doing their recital, making the odd mistake. And the things that I taught him, he was putting into practice. He was downgrading. He was reassuring himself with the truth.
Yep.
The truth, not the feelings. The truth, not the
Facts,
feelings.
not the feelings.
And and I could imagine him sitting there amongst all these parents, and he's going like this, and he's going like this, and he's going like this. But he got through.
Yep.
And he was so pleased with himself, and his son was so thrilled to see his dad there.
Yep.
So that was a breakthrough, because when we realize that we actually can control these feelings, as powerful as they feel,
Yep.
when we're able to reassess them with truth, we're able to downgrade them, we're able to put them where they belong. They serve me, not master me. And then we're gaining control.
Do you mind if I... How easy is it to reattach that on there? Because we've probably all watched videos or movies or somewhere where the trailers come off the truck and the truck comes forward and it's a bit further forward and it backs slowly on and it attaches and we're all under control. Most of us are thinking, no, it's going to be
Sure.
it's so difficult. So how easy is it to actually put the facts back in charge?
One of the goals is, if you can, and it's not essential, but it can be helpful, is to be able to go back to where the event probably originally happened. Black dog, getting lost in a department store and things like that. To be able to go back there and reassess it from where you are now. And say to yourself, okay, I see it for what it is now.
So this is the part of the trace it.
It is.
Face it and replace it.
That's correct.
So
we go back to that and we reassess it. And so we're able to bring truth in. So a fact.
So the feelings are running free.
Yeah.
But we're in the truck now, behind the wheel. We've got the facts.
If the feelings are running free, you won't have the facts, to be blunt. Because when that feeling is there, the feeling is in control. You are overwhelmed. You are fight, flight, or freeze. That's what will happen. Yep. And so the goal is to recognize that, okay, in this situation, like my client, he's going to the school to watch his son, never done that in his life before, and he knows the feeling is there because you can't get rid of it.
Yep.
We just downgrade it. And the more we're able to downgrade it, the more we control it. It's like for me, lost in a department store. Now when I think of getting lost, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, okay.
It's not so bad now because I've won so many times that it's lost its power. So that's the goal. And so when it can just stay here, when we can convince it to stay here with the evidence, then we're going to be okay. but we need to do that by reassuring ourselves with the truth. And that truth is bringing basically the frontal lobe, the frontal cortex, into the truth, into the situation, and being able to say, okay, that's that feeling. And that's why I actually labor a little bit on the amygdala. I help people recognize that the amygdala's job is to store and relay feelings and emotions. That's all it does.
That's what God created it to do. That's correct.
Yep, he made it to do that, but he also made the other parts of our brain to be able to reassess that, so that we are now in control, not the feeling. Because here's the thing, if you're standing on a railway line and there's a train coming and you're starting to feel scared, that's a good thing.
That's a really good thing.
And so you get the power to get your foot out of the track, or to get away from the situation. So the feeling is there to serve us and to serve us well. But if I'm sitting in my lounge and I can hear the echo of a railway train coming up through the valley, and I'm scared stiff of railway trains, and that echo, and I literally hear the echo, and I start getting freaked out, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence I need to be afraid? There is no railway line running through my lounge.
That's the monster under the bed, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's the creaky noise at night and the fear that there is this and that, which is, so the fear, and it's like, you can't say the emotion you felt when you were aware of whatever it was with the dog, however old you were. You can say, well, no, Alan, that was a wrong emotion. You shouldn't have felt that. Well, of course you felt that. That's what the emotion was for. But it's recognizing it, as you say, putting it in its context, in its time context. Correct. And saying that was a brilliant emotion. Brilliant feeling for that. Well done. Excellent. Dog's biting your hand. Great. That's perfect feeling. But that's situational. It's not now.
That's right. And that's why we bring the truth in, the truck unit in, to assess the feeling. We don't let the feeling do the assessing for us. The feelings are our servant, not our master. Now, most of us haven't got that understanding. Many of us do have emotionally based reasoning, and that was me. I'd wake up in the morning, maybe because I'd had some pizza the night before, or I had a stink dream or something, and I remember this. I woke up one morning thinking, there's something dreadful going to happen today. I really feel there's something dreadful going to happen today. So I walked through my day. I even told a colleague, I think something, the axe is going to fall. I don't know what the axe means, but something yucky is going to happen. And I wandered through that whole day based on a feeling. Feelings. And all I had was a stink day, waiting for something to happen that never happened.
Nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
It was just too many anchovies on the pizza.
Very well. Yeah. That's exactly what it could have been.
But it's not, we joke about it, but it's not a simple thing to say to the feelings you are not in charge. That's not an easy thing to do, is it?
No, and that's why we need to be able to recognise where it came from. We need to be able to understand some of the triggers that will bring it back again. Yeah. And one of the best ways to describe that is if you're body surfing at Mount Maunganui Beach and you're waiting for the big wave to come. Yeah. And because you're literally going to body surf, so you need a reasonable wave to take you along. And you're looking, it's not a good wave. And then someone catches your attention, they yell to you, and you turn to them and you're looking at the beach and they're trying to say something to you and you're wondering what they're saying. You don't realise this big old wave is coming up behind you. And so because you didn't know it was coming, you're not prepared for it. And it takes you, it whips your feet out from under you, and now you're rolling on the bottom of the ocean floor. Feelings are like that. Is we need to recognise, okay, in the situation, this kind of feeling could well hit me. And so I'm digging my feet into the bedrock of truth. Yep. And I'm able to say to myself...
Waves is a great example. Pickaway Beach, where my wife grew up, they're all dumpers, which I didn't find out until I was body surfing and my wife and sister-in-law laughing away, being slammed completely. But the other thing, Mount Maunganui, I think up north, Mangawai Beach is a great one as well, to actually let the waves just smack you. You just stand up against the wave. It's the same wave that if you weren't prepared for it, would be tumbling you all over the place. But if you make the decision, you can stand up and go,
that's right.
Yeah.
But the only way you can make that decision is having your feet firmly in evidence-based truth, in facts, so that when that wave hits, not if, But when that wave hits, you're able to reassure yourself enough, like this guy watching the school production, reassure himself enough to say, those are just echoes from my past. Just because I'm feeling it doesn't mean they're feeling it. That's countertransference, and that's not them, that's me. And just that reassurance, the digging your feet into that bedrock of truth, so that when the wave hits, you still feel it.
Yeah.
You still feel it, but it hasn't taken over. And as long as it's here, you're going to be okay. And when you've won one or two of those, and so I challenge any of the listeners, give it a go. And when you've won one or two of those, you realize, actually, I am in control of my feelings.
Yeah.
They are not designed, they're not meant to be controlling me. I'm meant to control them. They are meant to serve me, not master me.
Yeah.
And so I can then tell them, that's that echo from my past. This is what I do. That's that echo from my past. That was then. This is now. I'm okay. You're okay, Alan. You're going to be okay. You're not, when you got lost, it was scary. But you're 35 now. And your wife's sitting next to you and she's wondering what's going on.
Right, yeah.
You don't need to behave like that.
If I use the wave analogy again, and I like doing that, standing up in front of big smacking waves, and occasionally one of those will take you out.
Yeah.
And you will find yourself tumbling all over the place, completely overcome by the feeling of the wave.
Yeah.
But because you were ready for it and standing up against it, it doesn't affect you as much. You just get up, you brush the sand off, and you go, ha, 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 bring on the next one.
One of the lies for me that had a big influence on me was, I'm insignificant and unimportant. Attached to that lie was feeling ignored. When I felt ignored, it reminded me I was insignificant and unimportant. So it was just an attachment. And so when I realized that, I was able then to control that feeling. But every now and then, and this hasn't happened now for a number of years, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because it did happen a few years ago, and I was disappointed in myself over it, was someone ignored me. I felt they ignored me. It pressed that unbearable feeling. And the next time I saw them, I reacted to them out of that feeling. And they were shocked because that wasn't their intention. They just got distracted by something else. And they wondered, where the heck is he coming from? And so it was just another reminder. We can still get caught out from time to time, I guess is what I'm saying.
The feelings make terrible interpreters.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why they're meant to serve us, not to master us. Our truth is our guide, not feelings.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of anyone watching or listening to the podcast at the moment and thinking, Alan, what you're saying, I'm understanding it and this is me, but I don't know what that original feeling, what that original situation was. That's, I recognize that I've got the feelings in charge.
Yeah.
The emotions are in charge, not the facts, but I don't know why. How do you find out the why?
You don't have to find the genesis of it. You don't have to find where it came from. It can be helpful because you can label it, you can see it for what it was then and for what it is now.
Yep.
So we orientate it by bringing, well, that was then, this is now, into that context. But what we need to recognize is, are those feelings controlling me? What's in control here? Feelings or facts? And if it's feelings that are in control, then there is something that needs to be reassessed. And you may not be able to work that out yourself. That's why clients come to me because, as I say, every time I talk to you, if you want to know about water, don't ask a fish.
Yeah. Because
we're just stuck in the stuff. So one of the keys is to recognize, okay, have I got feelings in my life that overwhelm me, that take over, that are destructive in my life, that are causing problems in my life? And if the answer is yes, then I would really encourage you to pursue dealing with them, because in my experience, they don't just go away by themselves. I think we can grow out of the monster under our bed thing, but the only reason we grow out of that is because we say, well, there are no monsters like I described. They don't exist. And so then the feeling ends up serving us.
Yeah. It's some people will be going, I don't want to get into therapy. Some people need therapy, but I remember when I was chaplain at the local primary school, there were some kids that I saw every week, right? And I'm still in contact with some of them, and they're now in their late teens, and they still need help. But I remember one boy, he just said, as I was leaving a classroom, he said, "Oh, Mr. Holding, can I see you?" I said, "Yep." So we walked out onto the field, we sat down with our backs to a tree, and he just told me about family life, that Dad was in the gang, he was growing dope out the back of the household. He just needed to get it off his chest. Mm. He'd identified why he was feeling not good. I never saw him as chaplain again. I saw him around the school again, So there are times when somebody can go, "Hey, look, you come along, you talk to Alan or whoever. One session is enough to get you on the right road."
That's true. The picture I have of that, and the younger viewers might not know this, but you know what a poultice is?
A poultice, yep.
You have a boil, you put a poultice on the boil, and it draws out the gunk. It just has the ability to draw stuff out. Well, we have this wonderful privilege to be poultices with people that have got gunk in them.
Yep.
And if we can sit with a person, care for a person, listen to their story, that's very powerful. So you certainly don't have to be a trained counsellor to help a person work through things and find profound healing, which is a wonderful thing. So all of us can fit into that category.
Yeah.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so when you're sitting with a person and you're caring for them, they have this, there's an opportunity for them to get that out. And once they've got it out, they can actually see it clearer. And when they can see it clearer, maybe they can process that.
It's interesting when you talk about poultices, because it always reminds me of the story of Hezekiah in the Bible. And he was dying, and God said to him, "Get sort your life and family in order, because you're going to die." And he rolls over to face the wall, the Bible tells us, and cries out to God. And God hears him and sends Isaiah the prophet back to say those magic words, "I will heal you." Talk about 4 words. Yeah. Now we're talking about the king of Judah. Right, so I'm pretty sure he's got a few medical staff around him, and we know that. So what Isaiah said was to get a poultice of figs and put it on the boil,
right? And
he was healed. Didn't they try that beforehand? Maybe, but maybe not. But the key, I think, is that Hezekiah took his situation to God, and I'm not happy with where I am at the moment, God. And God said those words, "I will heal you." And then it's like, "I will heal you. Go and see a counselor."
Yeah.
Right? Yes, I could heal you like that. I could take away that disconnect or that wrong connection between the emotions and the facts, and I could do that. But in this instance, go and see a counselor. It might be once. It might be for a year.
Yeah.
But God says, I'm going to deal with it in your life so that I can use you the way I want to use you, because this is what's holding you back from that.
It's absolutely right. We all want to be, I don't know if the right word is clean, probably isn't quite the best word, but we all want to be clean vessels that life can flow well through.
Yes.
God can flow well through. We are living well. We're well connected. We don't react, we respond. And feelings easily produce reactions in us. If we're reacting to something, I often say to myself and to others, okay, I'm reacting to this. What's behind that reaction? Because reaction is not good. I need to learn to respond.
Yep.
Because reaction is just what you do. It's just what you do. Well, what's that causing in your life? I think I said this the other day. If you've got you've got an anger problem if anger is causing problems. You've got an alcohol problem if alcohol is causing problems.
Yeah, not just problems for you, but problems.
Problems in your life is more what I mean. You've got an anger problem if anger is causing problems in your life.
Yeah.
And in your life means your life is
your
life is people, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're not to be isolated. So in our life, if anger is causing problems, we need to deal with that. Those are all indicators to us of an issue that needs to be addressed. And if we don't address the issue hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
And it'll only go away, as I think I said once, you write H for hurt on your hand, because of something that's yucky happened, you know, whether it be in your past or whether it's a life-defining moment that caused you to form a belief or a yucky feeling, and you go like this, it's still there. And the only way to bring healing to that, to bring it into the light, is to dare to go like that. Well, we can dare to go like that with people that are really close to us that we're safe with, or if you know that it's a significant issue, that once you've gone like that, someone needs to come in and actually be quite specific about how to achieve the healing from that for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as anything. You know, I had the other day was just a little thorn or something in the finger, and I'm trying to get it out. And I think it was probably the left hand, so it was the wrong hand for me. And so Sharon comes along. Do you want me to do it? But sometimes you got to go. Actually, I can't get it out. Can you get that out?
Yeah. It's lovely.
And sometimes we need help.
Yeah, we need help.
You know?
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah. All right, Alan, thank you once again. It's been great. And we will do this again. And if you click the link to Alan's website below, if you haven't watched the other videos, the Living Well videos, then I encourage you to do so. And you can check those on the link as well. And Alan, we'll catch you next time.
I look forward to that. Thanks, Rob.